Very much for being here with us this morning. To the session, Dear Leaders of the World, Joint Advocacy for a Gender-Just Post-2015 Agenda. This is a MenEngage Breakout session. So why have we called it Dear Leaders of the World? So what it speaks to is we're calling on leaders of the world, so, the presidents of the countries, heads of government, UN agencies, to really work for gender justice. But we are also making, it's like a personal request, right? It's like dear leaders, it's like we are writing them a letter, because in the end it's all of us, the people, the individuals, who are asking things, doing advocacy work in order to make other individuals, which are leaders of the world, walk the talk for gender justice. So I'll just briefly introduce myself. My name is Joni van der Sant, and I am currently the co-coordinator of MenEngage at the global level. And I would also like to ask my fellow panelists to briefly introduce themselves to you.
So hi, I'm Mark Peter van den Heuvel from Rutgers WPF in the Netherlands, and I'm an advocacy officer for the MenCare Plus program. And this is a program focusing on engaging men and boys in sexual and reproductive health and rights and gender equality in 4 countries, in Brazil, Rwanda, Indonesia, and South Africa. And I'm very happy to be here and to exchange ideas and thoughts.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mabel Sengendo. I work with Sonke Gender Justice. It's in South Africa, but I'm based in Uganda. And I coordinate the UN Trust Fund project in Sierra Leone, Rwanda, and Kenya. And my role is to coordinate the international programs for Sonke, because Sonke is in South Africa, but I work on the regional, the African programs. So it's good to be here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anika Larsen. I am the Humanitarian Advocacy Advisor for Save the Children, and I'm based in Sweden. So you might think, well, what is a Humanitarian Advocacy Advisor doing here? Good question. I haven't told my boss. She doesn't know I'm here, actually. So, besides doing all the Ebola, the Syria, the Iraq, the Central African Republic, the Sudan, the South Sudan, the Somalia, DRC, I'm also very interested, and Save the Children are very interested in bringing the whole issue of child protection closer to GBV in development settings, but also in humanitarian settings. So that is why I'm engaged as well, and I'll tell you a bit more about that later.
Thank you. Very happy that you're able to be here. Unfortunately, Nulin Nabulivu, who was also mentioned in the program, is not here because of health reasons. She's okay, but she was not able to travel. So, for your information. So what are we going to do? I'm going to briefly explain a little bit of context of why and what Post-2015 actually is. We're going to talk about trends and opportunities of working with men and boys, kind of what have we been seeing in the last few years. Some key advocacy asks that we've formulated as MenEngage for working with men and boys on gender justice. And our panelists here are going to present some advocacy examples from practice. And we will have a little bit of a workshop, some interaction with you as well. So let me start with why is Post-2015 important. So the Post-2015 Development Agenda, it refers to a process by the United Nations, and so the member states, the governments that are members of the United Nations, that aims to help define the future global development framework that will succeed the Millennium Development Goals, which are a set of 8 concrete goals that are going to end in 2015. Hence the name Post-2015. So why is this so incredibly important? Because it sounds really abstract. Post-2015, Sustainable Development Goals, they've also been called. Well, if you look at them, the Millennium Development Goals, what have we learned from them? It's that they have framed the debate at the global, regional, and national levels. So we're expecting the Post-2015 agenda to do the same. And it will really influence this new agenda, the government policies and the priorities that are going to be set. It will influence programs that governments will work on, but also, hence, that civil society will work on. And it will influence funding streams. And what we are expecting is that once the post-2015 agenda has been set, it's actually going to be quite difficult to get things that were not in there on the agenda, and hence get them implemented, have programs, have funding. And it's really important to make the link with the national and the local levels, because in the end, the implementation is going to happen there. And I think it's also important to mention now everybody's kind of rounding up for the last year of negotiations that are going to start next year. And there's a tendency of like, okay, what will happen next? Well, that's actually where it's going to start, because that's when the implementation phase happens. So I think the coming 15 years, or maybe even 20 years, the post-2015 agenda is going to be crucial, the crucial framework for what we are all working on. So I'm really interested to know, to who does this look familiar? Are there people in the room that have never seen this? Okay, yeah, I can imagine that. But overall, like, there's quite a lot of people who actually know it, and that's one of the successes of the Millennium Development Goals. So these are the current 8 goals that we have, and they've done a pretty good job in getting a lot of attention for them. They were really framed very nicely with colors, and so what was good about them is that there were 8 concrete goals with clear time frame and result areas. The great thing is that it has a goal, number 3, on gender equality, and I put it in brackets because it's quite a limited understanding of gender equality, but it got on the agenda. And it also has the MDG number 5 on maternal health. It has a couple of other goals which kind of relate to gender equality. And what it has led to unprecedented attention and funding for, amongst others, women's rights and gender equality work. But there's also been a lot of criticism on them. So they were very concrete, but they were also very technocratic. There was very limited attention for addressing underlying causes of or of inequality in general, or of poverty, or human rights violations, such as power inequalities or patriarchy. These were all things that are definitely not in the MDGs. So it has a limited understanding of gender equality, and it only addresses like the gender disparities in primary and secondary education. At least that is the target. It does have some concrete standards on enhancing political participation as well, but it's quite limited. And there was absolutely nothing in it about engaging men and boys. And when you look at the implementation, as good as it is that we have this MDG 3, it's really the goal where there has been least progress. Sexual and reproductive health and rights are a very debatable issue still. And it's just a framework that is quite deprived of a human rights agenda. Even though the Millennium Declaration had a human rights agenda, they were kind of streamed away in the MDGs. So what have we learned? And at this point I would like to ask Carolina Johansson Wenneholm, I think, to say a few words on a report that was recently written by Paul Dover, who unfortunately passed away a short time ago. And Paul Dover has really been one of the champions within government asking for working with men and boys on gender justice. And he recently wrote this report, Increasing Engagement of Men and Boys for Gender Equality. And I think one of the things that we are really advocating for is having partnerships with government and civil society to work on these issues. And SIDA has been a really strong partner in that. So I would like to give the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. It's an honor to be here. I am Carolina Wenneholm, and I work as the lead policy advisor on gender at Swedish SIDA. And Paul Dover was a dear colleague to me, and he has been one of the champions at SIDA for many years to support the work on men and boys. He worked on this his whole life. And during his last year, when he was eaten up basically by cancer, he was still working and he wouldn't let go because he really he was planning to come back. And then we had this fantastic dialogue during this time, and he was writing this overview, not because he thought he was leaving, just because he thought that, well, it's time to sum up a little bit and take new steps. So that was his plan. And we have a number of copies of this report that we call it in the SIDA Serious Development Trends. And Lotta, my colleague here, she will distribute those to you, and please take a few copies as well. And some of the lessons learned that we see, I think the previous slide is sort of summarizes the key findings. What we see is clearly overall an increased focus on gender equality per se. There is no doubt that gender equality shouldn't be on the agenda really. And the focus of course is on leveling the field between women and men to improve lives of women and girls. But we know, and it was so wonderful to hear to our colleagues this morning, of we cannot achieve that if we don't work together and if we don't work with women and girls and men and boys. Not only because they are key advocates, but because there's a reason in itself. What we also see is that there is, but even though we have this focus, we see also that there is tendency, when we talk gender, that we focus only on women and girls. And then we miss half of the chances we have to make a difference. So that's one side of the issue. Then we also see that there is an increase in stakeholders, and I think this whole conference is a fantastic manifestation of the number of organizations and also the number of participants within the organizations. We also see that we have an increased evidence of why we should work with men and boys. It's not an issue that we just want to. It's that we have proof of it. We have research. We have quantitative data. We have qualitative analysis. We have to use that. We see in implementation, and that's for sure we see in our cooperation, as in the Swedish cooperation, that it's a focus on small-scale projects, and there's limited mainstreaming, particularly in social sectors. We are looking at this in health area, in education area, and we hold all these arguments for addressing men and boys when it comes to gender-based violence. But we don't look at it in the overall gender equality agenda, and it's just starting up work on women's economic empowerment and in terms of women's leadership overall. And I think all of us who are living in relations with men, with women, we know it's an everyday discussion on how we divide our time, how we divide power, how do we share the work in home and outside home, how do we raise our children, our sons and daughters. And another issue that Paul raises is also that we need also, building on the evidence, we need to measure. And I think many of us are very tired of indicators. No, how do we make a number to synthesize a whole process? But we live in a world where we have to show results, and we also need to become better in identifying indicators. So these are some of the main trends. Now, some of the quotes that he raised was that, of course, working with men and boys is not a silver bullet, but it is a critical part of this work. We cannot go into the future without working on that. And that's one of the main reasons we need to have it on the future agenda of the SDGs. And it is definitely something that we are pushing from. I am pushing towards our ministry and our new government that this has to be on the agenda. And so I know the civil society is doing. So we here have a collaborative work. So it is an opportunity now to rethink, to build on the knowledge, to build on the research, to build on the community, to build on all of us who are here. And not only here, we have so many colleagues that could not travel to Delhi, but are outside all over the world with this power, women and men, in all ages. We must take this opportunity to go ahead into the future. And we need to have the decision makers, the governments, and we need ministerial commitments, those who really are taking the powerful decisions to understand this. And I know we do have some fantastic colleagues also in that level. I don't know if you have another slide for me. Or no. Thank you, Joni. So please have a copy. This is also available on the symposium website. But we have plenty of copies, so please take a few. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the process part again, which is, I think, a little bit a tough cookie to crack, but I will keep it short so that we can really go into the policy asks and practice afterwards. So, so far what we've seen in the post-2015 process is that there's been strong advocacy for a standalone goal for gender equality, and also for integration of gender equality aspects in all of the other goals. And it's also been asked, speaking to the measuring part, we have to have sex disaggregated data and sex relevant indicators. So basically saying, like counting how many men and women and boys and girls are we reaching. There's some important civil society groups. So MenEngage is doing this post-2015 advocacy work, but so are, and we're partnering with, for example, two very influential groups, which is the Women's Major Group, which collects women from all around the world. It's mainly women, actually, as the name says, and they are working for gender equality, and they are a recognized group in this progress. And there's also the post-2015 Women's Coalition doing advocacy work. There's been a report of the UN Secretary General, oh no, that's not right. The report of the UN Secretary General is coming the end of the year. The high-level panel report has been published. Some of you may already know this. UN Women has very strongly advocated for having a transformative standalone gender equality goal. And the great news is, and really there was a time that we did not expect, we were not sure that it was going to happen, because as you may know, sometimes there is, how do I say this, a fundamentalist groups are getting stronger, and it was not always clear that gender equality would be firmly on this new agenda again. But it has now been agreed that at least in the proposed set of goals, there will be a standalone gender equality and women's empowerment goal. So that is really good news. And I think, to me, the less good news is that in spite of quite a lot of governments being in favor, so far the working with men and boys has not been really formally written down in the proposal yet. So it was put on the table, and it's kind of been taken out as one of these typical trends where, like, yes, there's a lot of things that is important, but maybe this is not one of the key things, which is really weird, because as we're seeing here, we're here with so many people. There's been so much energy and attention for work with men and boys, especially like in the last months, that we do really hope that we can get it back in there in the coming year, when there is going to be negotiations for this post-2015 agenda. So what MenEngage has done, and I will keep that brief because you can download them on our website, we have developed a call for action on the post-2015 agenda. There is a toolkit for advocates that you can download, and we recently formulated our analysis and proposal for the way ahead in a reaction to the proposed Sustainable Development Goals. The process ahead is that before the end of the year, the Secretary General will come with a synthesis report, which will include, for example, the MenEngage reaction to the proposed goals, as well as many of the other civil society reactions. In January 2015, the negotiations will start. We honestly really don't know yet what that's going to look like, so I cannot share any information about that with you. It's still a huge question mark. Another really, really important moment is the annual Commission on the Status of Women, which is going to take place in March again. It will review the 20 years of the Beijing Platform for Action, and we're actually going to have a panel about that at the end of the day as well. And it will look at opportunities for working with men, for achieving gender justice, and I hope for working with men and boys. And we're definitely, in the coming months, are going to work very hard to get it in there. And the end of 2015, then we're expecting to see the launch of the new set of development goals, which, as I said before, are really going to set the agenda of what we are working on for the coming 15 to 20 years. So at this stage, I want to ask my colleague Mark Pieter to present the content, the policy asks that MenEngage is asking for when it comes to gender justice and working with men and boys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yoni. I don't know how it is with you, but all these processes going around, the post-2015 SDGs, the OWGs, it's quite a lot, and I'm only making it worse by not writing it full out. So let me say it full out. I would like to just quickly go through what we as MenEngage Alliance have commented on with regards to the proposed Sustainable Development Goals that were proposed by the Open Working Group. Well, just a little bit about myself. I work for Rutgers WPF. Rutgers WPF is also a member of MenEngage, and I don't only want to bring my input to the MenEngage comments from the Netherlands, but also really ground it into what's happening in the field. So in giving my comments for MenEngage on the proposed SDGs, we really looked at the implementation of the MenCare Plus program. So what's happening in Rwanda, in South Africa, in Indonesia, in Brazil, and what kind of policies focusing on engaging men would really help to improve also the implementation of those programs. Okay. So Yoni already mentioned we're very happy that a standalone goal on gender equality and empowerment of women and girls has come through. It is proposed as a standalone goal number 5, and I think, well, maybe not an applause, but a compliment to our colleagues at UN Women, UNFPA, the Women Major Group, all the gender justice organizations who have been involved in the Open Working Group discussions and who have pleaded for this standalone goal. I think they've done a great job in doing that, and I'm very happy that this standalone goal is still on. As Yoni also already mentioned, gender equality as a cross-cutting issue in all the other SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. That's also a very important point. And we're now making sure that all of this is recorded. Yes, from now on it is. And Yoni also already mentioned that we think that what is missed in the proposed Sustainable Development Goals as of yet is really the focus also on engaging men and boys and addressing men and boys' role in achieving gender equality and promoting women's rights. And why we think this is very essential to also integrate is because we really have to look at a transformative agenda, and we need to address the root causes of gender inequality. And if we not look at the role of men and boys in this, then I think we miss out a lot. But then again, goals have been proposed, targets have been proposed. I'm not under the impression that we're still able to really change a lot on that. But the things that have not been proposed yet, or that have not been set in stone yet, are the indicators. So that's why in this MenEngage comment, we really focused on providing a few indicators focusing on the engagement of men and boys. And I haven't had the time to put that in the PowerPoint, but just to mention a few indicators in which men and boys could be involved. For instance, under target 5.2, eliminate all forms of violence, we have suggested an indicator as the rate of men who condemn rape supportive attitudes and the rate of men who support existing GBV laws. And the number of men compliant with state regulations related to child support. Why is this important that we have these global scale indicators? Because then in policies, in programs, program proposals, people have to take these indicators into account. Yes, let me end by saying that as MenEngage, for the post-2015 process, we really want to focus on three major advocacy asks, and those are to commit men and boys to an equal share in caregiving and household work, to engage men as partners, clients, and agents of change in sexual and reproductive health and rights, and maternal, newborn, and child health, and to really engage men in preventing and responding to gender-based violence. Let me leave it at that.